Yep, everybody knows what old Jack Burton would say in a time like this. Old Jack always say, what the heck? Oh, hey everyone. Just reading this Big Trouble in Little China comic that I got from the comic book store. It's the first issue, so I haven't collected the rest lately, but this is really interesting. Picks up where the movie left off. Anyway, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, for today's Asian Month, the movie where I talk about all the movies made from Asia. Of course, you remember my last film, Hayao Miyazaki. But today, I'm going to review another movie made from Japan. And of course, this one is unlike any other Japanese movie ever made. And of course, this one is about, it's based from manga comics, and I hardly read any manga comics, because, I never did catch up to the whole manga franchise. And I know they made Dragon Ball Z, and Hellsing, and Death Note. I might get to them later. But, the one I'm going to talk to you about, this is unlike any story. The movie I'm reviewing for you today is the whole series of movies called Tomie. Now, of course, not many of you people know about Tomie. Well, let me clue you in. She sold her soul to the devil back in 1900s. And, of course, during the time of the 1900s, she sold her soul to the devil to become an unstoppable demon. She's like a demon from hell. And one thing about her is that one thing you can recognize that that's Tomie is she always has this little mole right here, a beauty mark. And of course, every time when guys saw her, they fall madly in love with her, and they go completely crazy over her because of how beautiful and sexy she is. This is water. Anyway, in the story, no matter how many times you kill her, she always comes back. Like if you cut off her head, she grows a new head out of the stem. And of course, her head will grow a new body. And of course, any girl who touches any part of her DNA, like her blood or her lipstick or inhaled her ashes, will be possessed by her. And of course, one time there was a group of guys who were fall madly in love with Tomie. They end up killing each other because they would go completely mad over Tomie. Anyway, this here's a box set, and I'll talk about the other movies I don't have on DVD, but this one is a box. This is a Tomie collection. It has all 5 movies, but of course there were more that I found. Let's get to the first one, shall we? This one is a story about this one girl who, she lives her life as a photographer because she wants to be the best known photographer, and something about her past made her forget of what she'd been through until all of a sudden she found Tomie and she's helping her remember her past, while at the same time she's tempting her two-timing boyfriend who's been cheating on her with another girl. But, of course, her boyfriend is not tempted by Tomie herself. And she gets really fascinated on knowing why. In the movie, it's kind of surprising, and the girl thought she killed Tomie, but at the end, she started having the mole, and she's starting to get possessed by her. And then they did a sequel called Tomie Another Face. And this is a 3-story tale about 3 guys who encountered Tomie. One's about a photographer who once met her when he was a young kid. She thought she was a vision of his pictures. Until when he finally found her, she thought she's the daughter of the one that he fell in love with. But as it turns out, it's the same girl. And the pictures he took of her showed the evil side. Like every time you take a picture of her face, she's have a shadowy face standing beside her, showing her evil side. And of course, the other tale talks about a guy in the eye patch who worked in the morgue who knew about her in the beginning. She was one of the victims in the morgue who came to life, and she pours something on his eye to make him blind. And now she falls on, and of course she has a boyfriend who falls in love with her. And of course the other tale was about involving college, where Tomie goes to college, and there's a group of teenagers who are getting so sick and tired of what she's been doing, vamping all the men, so they had her killed, but much to their surprise, she came back. And of course this third one, called Tomie Replay, in this one it had a young girl who had a new kidney, but as it turns out, the kidney was growing ahead, and it turns out that kidney belongs to Tomie, and the little girl is possessed by her. And of course, now everybody in the whole hospital are going completely insane because that girl they kept in the vat. And of course, the girl's father, who is the general of the hospital, he keeps on calling Tomie in Japanese, and this is a Japanese word that he calls her a bakimoto. Now, if you don't know what that is, that's a Japanese language for monster. He always keeps calling her bakimoto, 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 bakimoto. Sorry to scare you. Anyway, and of course she's vamping the girl's boyfriend, who really loves her a lot. And of course, same old thing. And then this is, now this one is my favorite Tomie sequel they made, called Tomie Rebirth. And this one involves an artist who did a painting of her. And of course, she said this painting makes her look ugly, and she starts ruining it, scratching it up. And the artist got so ticked off about her that he killed her and cut her up and then tried to bury her. And the group of his friends tried to help him out, and they recognized her face. And of course, much of their surprise, she's back. And she is vamping the one guy who has no interest of her. While at the same time, the same Tomie, she is flirting with one of the guys who's a real mama's boy. And she's making the boy's mother completely mad. And it forced her and her boyfriend to kill her. But of course, her blood. And of course, it's a really sad story because the main character in the story, she has a girlfriend named Hitomi. And I feel really sorry for her because she put on Tomie's lipstick and she starts getting possessed by her. And her personality keeps switching between Tomie and herself. And of course, one of his friends kept going after her. And of course, Tomie herself, her blood was splat on the painting, so now she came out of the painting. Really weird. And it's directed by the same... It's directed by Takashi Shimatsu. Takashi Shimatsu. The same guy who did U1 and Grudge 2. If you remember those movies. He's a really good director. And I might review those movies one of these days. Did an outstanding work. Tomie Rebirth was really sad, and I really liked it. Made you feel sorry for the poor girl who gets possessed. And then there is Tomie Forbidden Fruit. In this story, there is a young girl who goes by the name of Tomie, but she's not the same girl that you think. The reason why she's called Tomie because her father had a big crush on Tomie when he was a schoolboy. So he got married and named the daughter after a girl he had a big crush on? That's weird. And of course, the real Tomie comes, and she's tempting her, and the real Tomie comes, and she starts tempting him to kill his own daughter. and that's one thing he cannot do. But at the same time, the poor girl with the same name as the evil girl, she gets picked on by a bunch of bullies. It was good. It was okay. I mean, it's not all that bad. Anyway, this is a good box set. Shows Tomie. And here's a shocker here. Inside the box has designed pictures of the comic looks from the comic pages. This is what Tomie looks like in the comics, in the manga comics. And of course, in the side here shows the faces of all the actresses who played her. Tomie has a really good story, and it's a fascinating tale. And of course, there were other ones that I don't have, but I've seen them. There was one called Tomie Revenge. It was pretty gory. It was pretty, like, cheese ball blood spat everywhere. It was just so, nah. It was no good. And then they made another Tomie where they called Tomie Origin, where it's telling the backstory of the first Tomie movie. Like how this one guy who had a deformed eye found a bag with Tomie's head on it, and it turns out to be her heart in the origin. And also tell the backstory about the girl who is the photographer who came and saw her. And then they made another Tomie movie that I was pretty surprised about. It was called Tomie vs. Tomie. In this one, there are two Tomies. One who's in charge of some factory and treating all the guys like slaves, while the other one is trying to take over the company. And they're trying to tempt this one boy who has no interest of any of these two Tomies. And of course, it shows down into a big fight between the two Tomies. I mean, it was completely Tomie versus Tomie. See which one would win. I mean, it's kind of like my. I remember in the making featurette of the first Tomie, the author who wrote the manga books about Tomie, he said there might be another Tomie and then another Tomie versus Jason, Tomie versus Freddy, Tomie versus Ash. But of course, I think Tomie versus Tomie is close enough. And of course, they had a surprise ending on Tomie versus Tomie because the reason why the boy wasn't interested in either of these two Tomie girls is because he himself met a girl who is like Tomie herself, and after she died, he swallowed a piece of her rib, and shocking of all, at the end, she came out of his stomach. Ugh, that was weird. Anyway, this is Multi-Voice Reviewer telling you to stay tuned for some more interesting reviews for Asian Month today. And for all of you who are probably understood Japanese, arigato. And see you soon.